I never expected a chance encounter with a millionaire to reveal my family's heartbreaking secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other day, but the air was thick with anticipation. I could feel it in my bones, like a storm brewing on the horizon. My heart raced as I made my way to the cafe, my stomach a knot of hope and fear. The sun poured through the windows, warm and inviting, but inside me, the chill of uncertainty lingered that I spotted him at a corner table, an island of calm in the chaos. He had a presence that seemed to draw everyone's eyes, broad shoulders, a confident smile, and an aura of mystery that enveloped him. I knew his face. The news had been buzzing about him for weeks, a wealthy entrepreneur, a self-made millionaire with a past shrouded in whispers. Everyone wanted to know his story, but to me, he was just a man. A man who sat across from me, urging me to step out of my comfort zone, but it was more than just nerves, it was the weight of secrets my family had carried for years. An affair of the heart, a lost fortune, and the pain of betrayal lurking in our past. My mother, so poised, hid the truth behind her delicate smile. She always told me to keep our family's troubles close to the chest, never let the world see our wounds. But that day, the walls she'd built started to crumble. I took a deep breath, the scent of coffee grounding me as I approached his table. My hands trembled as I introduced myself. His gaze locked onto mine, an unsettling mixture of warmth and scrutiny. As we exchanged words, I felt an unexplainable connect-Iona pull that sent shivers down my spine. But those shivers reminded me of the shadows lurking in my family's history, shadows I couldn't quite face until now. Suddenly, his voice deepened, and he leaned in closer. I could hear my heartbeat, thundering in my ears, drowning out the cafe's noise, the laughter, the clinking of cups. "What's your family hiding?" he asked, his eyes piercing through me. The question hung in the air like an uninvited guest. My breath caught in my throat as I grappled with my answer. Did he know? How could he? Then he revealed a Nemea name that twisted my stomach into knots. A name I hadn't uttered in years. "Your mother spoke of them, did you ever wonder why?" There it was, the barely concealed scandal beneath our family name. My heart sank, and just as I opened my mouth to respond, a rush of voices erupted from the doorway, but their words were lost in the chaos of my thoughts. What was he getting at? My thoughts raced as I felt the tightness in my chest multiply. Questions spiraled in my mind, and a sudden silence enveloped us. The world around disappeared. But what would I say? Would I dive into the painful truths that lay buried, or shield them, keeping my family's secrets locked away forever? My heart trembled as uncertainty loomed. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The weight of his question churned within me, and for a fleeting moment, the chaotic symphony of the cafe faded completely. How did he know? The name he mentioned echoed in my mind like an unwelcome specter. My mother had spent years burying that name along with the truth it carried. A silence stretched between us, heavy and fraught with unspoken fears. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as every instinct screamed at me to retreat, to protect the fortress my family had meticulously built around our past. But there was something in the way he looked at me, something that urged me to be honest, if only for a moment. My voice trembled as I began the delicate unraveling of my inner conflict. I thought it was just a rumor, a dark cloud that had long since passed, I stammered, my throat tight. His gaze softened slightly, a flicker of understanding passing through his eyes. Rumors often hold more truth than we care to admit, he replied gently. But sometimes, facing them is the only way to reclaim our story. Just then, a waitress approached our table, breaking the tension with a cheerful smile. Her presence was like a breath of fresh air, a reminder that life continued beyond the turmoil of secrets. She took our orders with an efficiency that momentarily cleared my mind. I watched her soften toward him, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy simmer beneath the surface. What was it about him that drew people in so effortlessly? As she walked away, the warmth receded, the weight of unspoken truths returning. I locked eyes with him once more, struggling to find the courage to share the burden I carried. The dark cloud, it's about my mother, I whispered, instinctively glancing around, half expecting someone to overhear my confession. She had an affair with someone. A man tied to our family's downfall. He nodded slowly, his expression inscrutable but filled with genuine curiosity. And did she love him? That question hit hard. Deep down, I had always wondered. Was her need for warmth and connection worth the fracture it caused in our family? I think so. My voice barely rose above a whisper. But she left it all behind when I was born. Sometimes I think she wanted to forget. Another rush of laughter floated in from a nearby table, contrasting sharply with our somber conversation. My heartache felt almost indecent in the cafe's buzzing atmosphere. Just then, a flicker of kindness materialized as the waitress returned, bringing our drinks. She set a steaming cup in front of me and grinned. Here's a little something to brighten your day. It was a simple gesture, but it pulled me back momentarily, sparking a glimmer of light amidst my heaviness. Thank you, I said, genuinely touched, as she walked away. I realized that sometimes, hope could surface in the smallest of kindnesses. Turning back to him, I felt the stirring of resolve within me. Was it possible that sharing my truth could unravel the tight hold my family's past had on me? What if I told you the truth? The whole truth? I surprised myself with the boldness of my words. Then let's change the narrative together, he replied, leaning closer, his expression full of encouragement. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open again, and a chilling breeze sliced through the warmth, drawing my attention away. I turned just in time to see a familiar figure entering the cafe, a specter emerging from my past. My heart dropped as recognition hit me like ice water. It was my mother, her eyes scanning the room, landing squarely on me. In that moment, all the courage I'd mustered threatened to evaporate. The woman who had built walls around her truths, who had taught me to keep our family's secrets, stood there, her expression betraying nothing as she locked eyes with me. She walked closer, and a cold dread settled in my stomach, a storm on the horizon that I had not anticipated. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, a harbinger of the confrontation that lay ahead. Why are you here? I managed, my voice taut with emotional tension, the million unspoken questions hanging heavy. Between us. Her lips tightened, and in that moment, I understood. Secrets can lie in wait for years, but some shadows refuse to stay hidden forever. And while my heart raced in fear of what was to come, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Perhaps now, at last, the truth would be unearthed, setting us all freer. Perhaps it would only bind me deeper into the patterns of our family's painful legacy. It was time to face the storm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a tumultuous journey. The air between us vibrated with tension as my mother approached, her presence filling the cafe like a thundercloud. Her mannerisms were familiar yet foreign, a woman who had concealed so much for so long. What are you doing here? I repeated, the question more urgent this time, layered with hurt and the fragile hope for clarity. I could ask you the same, she replied, her voice steady, but a flicker of vulnerability shimmered in her eyes. I didn't expect to find you here. I glanced at the man beside me, his eyes flicking between us, unsure how to navigate this sudden shift in the dynamics. I felt the heaviness of his supportive gaze, a grounding force amidst the storm brewing between my mother and me. In trying to understand, I confessed, allowing the truth of my feelings to spill forth, even if it scared me. Understand why you never talked about him, about any of it. Her face fell, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening as if burdened by memories she wished to keep at bay. Some things are better left in the past, she said, a defensive tone creeping in. Are they? I took a breath, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Are they better left when they haunt us? When they shape our lives and choices without us even knowing? The words felt powerful, my desire for honesty and resolution pushing me to challenge her. The cafe's ambience dimmed around us, all sounds muffled as if the earth itself held its breath. I knew this moment was pivotal. My heart raced like a wild thing, desperate for answers and terrified of what they might unveil. I found out about the affair, I whispered, glancing at him for a fleeting moment, seeking solace in the warmth of our prior connection. And I need to know the truth. Was it worth it? A moment of silence stretched between us, thick like the pastry on a plate untouched. Finally, my mother's shoulders relaxed slightly, the walls she had long since constructed starting to crack. "Bella," she began, her voice softening, "that was a time in my life when I felt utterly lost. I didn't know how to be the person everyone expected me to be. He was a fleeting escape, nothing more. Disappointment washed over me, mingling with a glimmer of empathy. I had spent so many years building this moment in my head, expecting a grand confession, a release of all the secrets. But it destroyed us," I said, my voice wavering. "Whatever fleeting escape it was for you, it sent ripples through our lives, and I've been trying to trace the damage." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I know. And that pain." She paused, collecting her breath. "That's why I tried to shield you from it. I thought if I buried the past deep enough, you wouldn't feel its weight, but it didn't work," I countered softly, almost pleading. "I feel it every day, trapped between your choices and my own identity. I need to reconcile the past with who I am now." Several customers had turned their attention toward us, whispers starting to ripple, but in that moment, I didn't care. All I wanted was understanding. Before my mother could respond, the cafe door swung open again, and a chill swept through me once more. A man in a crisp black suit walked in, his presence commanding attention even from across the room. I had never seen him before, yet there was an undeniable strangeness as he approached. Our tablean odor of familiarity mixed with something unsettling. "Marianne," he stated, his voice low and deliberate. "I need to speak with you. It's urgent." My mother's expression shifted dramatically, a flush of panic evident on her face. "Not here," she replied, suddenly defensive again. "We can't." "Too late," he interrupted, his eyes darting to me. "She deserves to know the truth." "What truth?" I asked, frustration mounting as whispers surrounded us like a swarm of bees. "What's going on?" "Bella," my mother said, desperation tinging her tone, "you don't understand. It's not just about the affair. It's about everything that followed. About what he did, what would happen if you knew." Confusion swept over me, but as fear etched itself on her features, I realized I was standing at the edge of an abyss. My mother had been guarding more than just her past. Her secrets bore consequences that could shake the very foundation of my life. "What did he do?" The words escaped my lips like a gasp, caught between dread and an insatiable craving for clarity. The man stepped closer, lowering his voice, but my heart thundered, every beat echoing with the weight of impending revelations. "Your family is more entwined with this than you think, Bella. And the shadows of your mother's past are about to return in a way you never anticipated." I glanced at my mother, fear flashing in her eyes. Had I really been prepared to uncover everything? Or had I just stepped deeper into a darkness that was far over my head? With that last revelation hanging in the air, uncertainty enveloped my heart, a chilling premonition of the storm that still lay ahead. The cafe's ambience had shifted from intimate tension to a maelstrom of uncertainty, the whispers coiling around our table like ivy. I glanced at the man in the suit. His impeccably tailored clothes almost made him look regal, yet the unease in his demeanor was palpable. My heart thudded in my chest, an insistent reminder of the stakes at play. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt, but desperation crept in the edges. "What do you mean my family is involved?" "Bella, stop," my mother urged, panic lacing her words. "This isn't the time or place." I noticed her hands trembling as she clenched them on the table, a flurry of emotions etched into her face. The man leaned closer, his gaze piercing. "Because you need to know. For your own good." "Enough," she snapped, the fire in her voice a stark juxtaposition to the fear clutching her heart. "You can't just waltz in here and." But he continued, undeterred. "The past has a way of resurfacing, Marianne. And it won't stay buried any longer." His eyes, dark and stormy, bore into mine, as if he carried the weight of forgotten truths meant for me alone. Suddenly, the ground beneath me felt treacherous, as though I were standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. The noise of the cafe dissolved into a ghostly silence, my mother's worried glances at me unmistakably signaling the gravity of the situation. "What do you mean by that?" My breath caught, threaded with resolves I didn't fully understand. He hesitated, a flicker of conflict crossing his features. There are consequences, both for her and for you. You need to know the truth before it reaches you in a way you never expected. A spike of urgency thrust through me. What truth? Just tell me. I felt my composure fray, as if the very fabric of my reality was unraveling strand by strand. The man hesitated, then glanced at my mother. You should have prepared her, Marianne. Now she's in the crosshairs too. Stop. I pleaded, frustration bubbling. What are you talking about? I deserve to know. My mother's face was a constant ballet of sorrow and regret. Not here, not like this, she choked out, burying her face in her trembling hands for a moment as if bracing for an impact. There was a split second, a moment when time hesitated, and I saw the glimmer of vulnerability beneath her facade. I reached over to her, desperate to bridge the distance that had grown between us. Mom, please. I can handle it. Whatever it is. But she shook her head, anguish spilling from her eyes. I thought I could protect you from this. From consequences. Her voice cracked, fragments of guilt layering her words. Consequences of what? I insisted, my heart racing. The warmth I had felt from my companion earlier now felt like a distant memory, replaced by a chilling dread. The man's resolve broke like a dam, unleashing a torrent of words. Your father, he wasn't who you thought he was. What your mother did was driven by desperation to escape a truth that might consume you both. The world around me spun, the cafe morphing into mere shadows and whispers, a surreal backdrop for the storm inside me. What truth? I repeated, urgency now breaking through my anger. Bella, please, my mother implored, a wretched plea that brought fresh tears to my eyes. I just wanted to protect you. A thought punctured through the confusion and unbidden memory of my father's distant presence, always saying the right thing but never truly there. Was he involved in something dangerous? In more ways than you can imagine, the man said, his expression turbulent with an amalgamation of sympathy and foreboding. The walls you've built are about to crumble, and with them, your understanding of who you are. In that moment, all I felt was despair, grappling with the fragments of my past and the impending revelations swirling around me. Just as I opened my mouth to demand further truths, there was a sudden noisier crash. A figure burst through the cafe door, sopping from the rain, eyes wide in frantic panic. Bella. It was my best friend, Emily, soaked through and trembling as she approached. You need to come with Menno. It's about your mother. A chill slithered down my spine, and my gaze darted back to my mother, the man, and then back to Emily. The layers of turmoil unfolded like origami, revealing a heartbreaking truth that lived in shadows. Mom, I started, but the urgency thrumming in Emily's voice cut through my plea. Trust me, please. It's bad time itself warped around us. With an instinctual feeling of dread coiling in my gut, I hesitated. The hurried breaths, the storm outside, and the unfamiliar truth danced in a spiraling vortex, leading me into an uncertain future. What had I already unearthed, and at what cost? I could sense the walls closing in, a tide of chaos swirling just beyond my understanding, leaving me on the precipice of a revelation I might not be ready to face. I stepped away from the table, my heart racing as I followed Emily outside into the dark rain-soaked street. The world blurred around me, the cafe's warm light fading behind like a closing curtain. The chill of the storm stung my cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the turmoil within. What do you mean it's bad? I pressed, trying to keep my voice calm. Emily fidgeted, her eyes darting from side to side, drenched curls clinging to her face. I overheard something about your mom. She's in trouble, Bella. Big trouble. Each word dripped with a seriousness that drummed louder than the rain. What kind of trouble? I barely recognized my own voice, thin and shaky. There's a man. Has been asking around about her. Not just in town, has been to her work, to our school. He said things that made it clear she's in danger. And you just thought to pop in during a downpour? I felt the sting of betrayal mingle with fear. You could have told me over coffee instead of storming in like this. I didn't know until I heard them, Bella. Her colorful bravado faded under the weight of sincerity. I tried to grab your arm and pull you away, but I didn't know it would turn into whatever this is. I just can't let anything happen to you. We stood beneath the dim glow of a streetlight, rain pooling at our feet while the world around us felt like it was spinning out of control. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to put the pieces together. Instead, I felt silenced by the knot of dread tightening in my stomach. How could I protect my mother when I barely understood what needed protection? Then what do we do? I lingered on the brink of panic, the rhythm of the rain creating an erratic tempo. Emily inhaled sharply, and with it, an air of determination surfaced. We need to find out what's going on. All of it. Maybe the man back there knows something we don't. He looked like he had secrets piled on secrets. Or more trouble. Fine, let's go confront him. I'll back you up. Her voice infused with a courage that momentarily steadied me. I had always leaned on Emily's spirit, her unyielding hope. As we turned to head back, I felt a sense of urgency building in the pit of my stomach. With each step, the reality of my family and my father's elusive past loomed ahead, threatening to swallow both my mother and me whole. The cafe doors swung open, and I paused. There he stood, the man in the suit, his expression inscrutable as he surveyed the street. The tension around him felt like static electricity, crackling in the air. He locked eyes with me and approached, his demeanor suddenly earnest, more human than before. Bella. Stay back. I felt the primal urge to protect myself. Emily stood firm beside me. I'm not here to harm you. I came to warn you. His words chilled me deeper than the rain. What could he possibly know that could change my perspective from distrust to understanding? You promised the truth. But all you brought was chaos. What do you want from me? I want you to be safe. Safe from what? From you. From my past. I deserve to know what I'm tangled in. His gaze softened, underscored by a weariness that suggested he carried burdens of his own. There are people who would go to great lengths to silence your family's truth. You and your mother are now in their crosshairs. Enough. Just say what you mean. My frustration morphed into desperation. Is it about my father? He flinched, then nodded slowly, the rain dancing sadly around us. It's more than you realize, Bella. The danger is looming over you like a shadow, and the only way to combat it is to face the truths buried in your past. In that moment, Emily reached for my hand, a silent anchor amid the swirling storm. What do you know? She urged gently, as if coaxing a wild animal from its lair. He hesitated, the storm raging against him as if the world itself demanded he speak. Finally, he relented. I can't explain everything now, but your father's choices tied into something that runs deeper, something that was never meant to be found. Meet me at dusk tomorrow, and I'll reveal everything. Just know there are people who won't let you walk away unscathed. Wait. I instinctively called as he turned to leave. How do I know I can trust you? He met my gaze, his eyes shadowed with sincerity. Because the truth will always find a way to surface, Bella. Trust me, it's better you learn from me than anyone else. Before I could respond, he stepped into the downpour, disappearing like a whisper, leaving both Emily and me enveloped in despair yet threaded with a sliver of hope. Do you think Hez lying? Emily asked, the concern in her voice a gentle annoyance amid the surging emotions. I don't know what to think anymore, I mumbled, my insides twisting. But we're going to have to find out. Tomorrow can't come fast enough. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, rain wrapping around us like an unrelenting shroud, the weight of my family flying toward uncharted territory pressing down hard. But the tight clasp of Emily's hand whispered of resilience, of strength yet to be unlocked as we turned toward an undisclosed fate. Yet still, a flicker of fear looped through my thoughts, clouding the dim glimmer of optimism. Tomorrow was pregnant with secrets, but the question loomed, would I survive the unraveling storm of my past? The anticipation of truths yet to come knotted my stomach tighter, and my heart began to race, beating perilously toward the unknown cliff that awaited me. The night wore on, a tapestry of shadow and rain as Emily and I made our way back to the warmth of her house. Each raindrop felt heavier, a constant reminder of the burden threatening to collapse on our heads. I could hardly shake off the image of the man in the suit, his eyes haunted, imbued with hushed darkness. Emily turned the key in the lock, her fingers trembling slightly. I'll make us some tea, she offered, trying to inject a sense of normalcy into the atmosphere that had spiraled so far beyond our control. Yeah, okay, I muttered, though my mind was miles away. I sat down in her small dining room, heart pounding loudly in the quiet space as I processed every word that had just been spoken. The storm had followed us inside, weaving a tension so thick I could almost touch it. I'm not sure how long I sat there lost in thought, but the gentle clink of mugs brought me back. Emily set a steaming cup down in front of me and slid into the chair opposite, her brows knitted with worry. Talk to me, she urged, batting away the droplets that clung to her hair. What's going on in that head of yours? I took a sip of the tea, the warmth shocking against the bitter turmoil I felt. What if it's true? What if my father's past is catching up with us? I'm scared, Em. Scared of what's been hidden from me all this time. Emily leaned closer, her voice soft yet firm. You're not alone in this, Bella. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. A sudden rush of gratitude surged through me. In a world that felt so out of sorts, Emily remained my constant. I just wished my heart could align with my logic. What if it's more than just our families? What if there are bigger forces at play? What if they come after you too? A frown marred her bright features. Stop it. You can't think that way. That man seemed to want to help, and that has to mean something. I nodded, though skepticism lingered. Maybe, but I can't shake the feeling we're already in over our heads. As we sat in silence, the walls around me felt like they were closing in. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table, vibrating absurdly like my heart. I reached for it, a strange mix of hope and apprehension coiling in my gut. The message was from my mother. Bella, I'm scared. Can you please come home? A cold dread settled in the pit of my stomach, its grip constricting. Emily, I whispered, my voice thick. What is it? Her eyes went wide, sensing the gravity behind my words. I showed her the screen, watching her expression morph from concern to alarm, color draining from her face. You have to go, Bella. Right now. Panic bubbled just beneath the surface. What if the man was right? What if someone is already after her? Then we need to make sure she's safe. Emily jumped up, urgency dripping from her every word. Let's get to your house, quick. As we ran into the night, the rain felt less like a burden and more like a shield. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, each beat echoing the desperate plea to protect my family. What awaited us in the darkness was a mystery clouded by uncertainty, a tempest I couldn't yet comprehend. When we reached my house, the door felt like a prison, whispering fears of what I might find inside. My hand trembled as I unlocked it, stealing a glance at Emily, who stood tall and resolute, next to me. The air was thick with tension, a jumble of static and doubt. Mom? I called, stepping inside cautiously, the dim light exposing shadows that seemed to writhe and twist in expectation. Silence responded, and that silence screamed louder than any noise could. I felt my breath hitch, uncertainty coiling tightly around my chest. Mom! Emily stepped further into the house, her eyes scanning the rooms. Maybe she's just in the back. We moved cautiously through the dim living room, where the television glowed faintly, its images dancing in stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere. I clutched Emily's hand, each moment stretching into an eternity until we reached the kitchen. The sight before us was jarring. Everything lay in disarray. My mother's purse was on the floor, its contents spilled like secrets. Unraveled, the chair where she always sat was overturned, and the back door stood ajar, swinging ever so slightly in the breeze. Mom! I whimpered, my voice barely above a whisper. Where are you? Emily's fingers tightened around mine, a silent strength amidst impending despair. We need to call the police. No. I shook my head, fear giving way to instinct. She might not be in danger. She might just need me. Bella. Emily started, but the urgency in her voice faltered. In case she is, we need to find her without raising alarm. Let's check the neighbors if she's not here. Just as I stepped forward, I felt the heat of my phone vibrating in my pocket again, the sensation so foreboding it made my heart race anew. I fished it out, my breath hitching at the sight of an unknown number calling me I didn't recognize, yet it felt burdened with significance. Answer it, Emily urged, fear crackling in the air like static electricity. As I swiped to answer, there was a pause, an empty breath that seemed to suspend the moment in time. Then, a deep voice purred thickly into the line. Bella, I think you should know. The storm is closing in. I froze, the revelation hanging heavy in the air, a chilling whisper that nipped at my resolve. I wasn't simply staring down the abyss of my family's past. It was already crashing into my present. The storm had begun its relentless advance, and I was caught at its center, teetering on the edge of a precipice I couldn't afford to fall from. "Who is this?" I whispered, heart racing. The voice chuckled softly, sending a shiver down my spine. "That's the question you should be asking yourself. But soon enough, you'll know more than you ever wanted to." And with that, the line went dead, leaving behind an echoing void of dread. Everything I had feared lay just ahead, unmarked and waiting, and all I could feel was the profound weight of my uncertainty pressing down, cold and unyielding, as the shadows among us whispered secrets meant to be kept. The night air clung to my skin, electric with a mixture of fear and heartache as I stared at the blank screen of my phone, the last echoes of the mysterious caller reverberating in my mind. I couldn't breathe. It felt as though the walls had constricted around me, squeezing the air from my lungs. Panic rippled through me, and I turned to Emily, her wide eyes reflecting the same trepidation I felt deep within my gut. "Bella, we need to regroup," she said, urgency coloring her tone. "Let's think logically. Your mom could be out," or her voice trailed off, leaving the implication hanging heavily between us. "But if she isn't?" I replied, my voice trembling. "What if she's in trouble?" Emily stepped in closer, the warmth of her presence grounding me even as the fear threatened to pull me under. "Let's check all the places she might go. The park. The cafe she loves. Anywhere familiar she could be trying to find her way back." A small spark of hope ignited in my chest. "Right. We can start at McKinley Park. If she needed to think, that would be her first stop." We plunged back into the night, the sound of our footsteps swallowed by the rain-soaked ground as we raced to the park. The trees swayed like specters in the wind, their silhouettes looming ominously overhead. Each gust of wind felt like a warning, underscoring the dread wrapped around my heart like a vice. "Do you think?" I hesitated, peering at Emily as shadows danced around us. "Do you think my dad had anything to do with this? I mean, he isn't around anymore, but what if his choices affected her too?" Emily paused, searching the depths of my eyes. "Bella, I know it's tempting to think that. But your dad made decisions for himself. This might just be something beyond his influence. We can't spiral into a labyrinth of conspiracy just yet." "Right," I nodded, wrestling with the bitter bite of doubt. As we approached the park, a flickering streetlight illuminated the entrance, revealing a familiar world tinged with uncertainty. "Mom," I called out, the sound of my voice cutting through the night, the hope in it both strong and fragile. "Where are you?" The night responded with silence, a canvas stretching before us filled with unspoken fears. As we moved deeper into the park, I could hear my heartbeat vibrating in my ears, drowning out the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of city life. Then, as if the universe answered my unspoken prayers, I caught a glimpse of a figure sitting on a bench beneath an oak tree, a figure bundled in a coat, hair silhouetted against the pale light of the moon. "Mom!" I shouted, sprinting towards her, a rush of relief surging through me. But as I neared, my heart sank. It wasn't my mother. Instead, a woman turned to face me, her eyes glimmering with recognition. I gasped as I realized who it was. Clara, a woman from my childhood. She had been my mother's friend, though we hadn't seen each other in years. "Bella?" Clara's voice cracked slightly, a frail smile pulling at her lips as she scrutinized me closely. "What are you doing here at this hour, Clara? Have you seen my mom? She's gone missing." I haven't seen her." Her voice took on a hushed quality, her gaze darting behind me, as if fearing who or what might overhear. "But I did receive a strange phone call earlier tonight. It mentioned you and your family." I froze, the weight of her words drawing me in. "What did it say?" Clara hesitated, her hands trembling in her lap. "It warned that a storm was coming for you, too." It sounded ominous, like a threat wrapped in a warning. She leaned closer, her eyes wide. I thought it was just a prank, but now before she could finish, shrouded footsteps echoed behind us, disrupting the fragile cocoon of safety we had constructed. Emily's grip on my arm tightened, even as Clara's face drained of color. "That voice, you recognize it?" she asked, shaking visibly. I glanced over my shoulder, dread pooling in my gut. The shadows cast by the nearby trees seemed to thicken, dark shapes coalescing in the night, and the air around us felt charged with ominous electricity. "Bella," Emily whispered urgently, "we need to." But just as she spoke, a figure stepped into the weak glow of the streetlight, and my breath caught in my throat. It was the man from the night before, the one who'd warned me. His suit was drenched, the rain running off him like the shadows birthed from the depths of the unknown, and a smile danced on his lips that twisted my insides. "Hello, Bella. I believe we need to talk." His voice was smooth, but the undercurrent of threat lingered like the storm clouds overhead, dark and gathering closer. "What do you want?" I demanded, feeling Emily pull me protectively back, but it was too late. The ground beneath shifted as reality spiraled dangerously. His gaze flickered to Clara, eyes narrowing slightly before returning to me. "I want to help you understand how deep this storm truly runs. But first, there are things you need to know about your family, things you never expected." As the tension thickened, fear constricted my chest once more, wrapping around my heart as if it were the target of an unseen arrow. I felt a shivering premonition, an inkling that the secrets hidden within my family tree would soon unfurl like dark branches reaching toward me through the night, eager to expose their truth, and that truth, I feared, would be more devastating than the tempest that hovered just before me. A chill swept through the air as I stood frozen, trapped in the man's magnetic gaze. The streetlight cast jagged shadows across his sharp features, and an unsettling calmness hung in the air, silencing the distant rustle of leaves and the muted drumming of rain. "What do you mean?" I croaked, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "What could you possibly know about my family?" He took a step closer, a predator inching toward its prey, and a flicker of recognition danced in his eyes. "There are connections, Bella. Connections that reach further back than you can comprehend. Your mother, she's a part of something much larger than the world you know." "Stop. Just stop talking in riddles." I felt Emily tense beside me, her breath hitching as fear mingled with curiosity. Why would my mother be involved in anything larger? She's just a woman trying to live her life. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Ah, but that's where you are mistaken. Your mother chose her path a long time ago, and it has consequences that run deep." Clara's expression morphed from helplessness to horror as she slowly pieced together his words. You know things about her past." She was leaning forward, desperate for the truth. The man turned his eyes to Clara, dismissing her as though she were an annoyance. "I know more than you realize," he said softly, his voice dripping with insidious certainty directed at me. "Tonight is merely the beginning." I could feel the weight of his words as they pressed heavily upon my chest. Every beat of my heart echoed my dread. "You're scaring me." "Good," he replied, his voice low. "You should be scared. The storm is coming, and it won't just affect your mother. It's coming for you, too." With those words, icy fingers wrapped around the back of my neck, a feeling I couldn't shake. Memories of childhood nightmares, discarded promises, and shadows lurking in doorways flashed before my eyes. I swallowed hard, wishing desperately to wake up from this moment to a world that felt safe. "We need to leave now," Emily murmured, gripping my arm tighter. I felt her warmth fuse with my fear, and her presence was a lifeline amidst the chaos. "May I remind you?" The man chuckled darkly, "You can't run from what you can't see." And then, as quickly as he had come, he turned to leave, his silhouette melding into the darkness from which he had emerged. I felt a violent tug at my core that itched to chase after him, to demand answers, to flee the looming shadows. But as his form disappeared, I felt something shift in me, a deep need to uncover the truth, regardless of how painful it might be. "Bella," Clara said suddenly, her voice trembling. I think I might know someone who can help." Her eyes darted around the park, scanning for something or someone. "There's an old friend of your mother's. If she's in trouble, perhaps he could shed some light on her past." "What do you mean?" I stepped closer, desperate for any lead. "How can we find him?" Clara looked hesitant, the courage to speak wavering on her lips. "He lives out by the coast, secluded. He might be volatile, but if anyone knows what's going on with your mother, it's him." "We can't waste time," Emily urged, pulling me away gently but insistently. "If we're going to do this, let's go now." A flicker of determination sparked within me. Perhaps this was the lead I had desperately needed, a glimmer of hope among the darkened trees. The storm may have threatened to tear my life apart, but I wouldn't let fear keep me shackled any longer. "Let's just go, while we can." I insisted. Clara nodded, her fear laced with purpose as we quickened our pace, but as we reached the park exit, a sudden commotion broke in the shadows behind us. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed, and I spun around, my heart racing once more. Emerging from the blackness was another figure, tall and shrouded, but in an instant, the moonlight caught enough of a face to make my breath hitch. It was a familiar face I hadn't seen in years. My father. He appeared worn and ragged, the light catching the remnants of the man who used to lift me high into the air and whisper that everything would be okay. A tremor of confusion sliced through my heart. "Dad," I whispered, hardly believing my eyes that he stood there, his expression a storm of desperation and regret, as if he had fought tooth and nail to return to this place, to this moment. "Bella, I need to talk to you, there's no time." His voice was strained, drenched with urgency, and as he stepped into the light, I felt the earth beneath me tremble. Why now? My heart felt like it might pound right out of my chest. "Why did you leave? Where's Mom?" He took a staggering breath, his eyes darting between me and Clara. "The things I did to protect you, to keep your mother safe. They have consequences far greater than I could have ever imagined. And you." But before he could finish, his voice cracked, and I knew in that tense moment that he wasn't the only one being hunted. Everything I had thought I understood was about to shift beneath my feet, not just the storm threatening to break, but the very fabric of my family's secrets, now tangled together in a web of danger that I could neither predict nor escape. The night stood still, dense with the weight of our truths, and as I stood paralyzed between my past and an uncertain future, I realized the real storm was just beginning. I had expected a confrontation with a stranger in a darkened park to break down the walls I had built around my heart, but I never imagined that in the same breath, my father would reappear like a long-forgotten ghost, shattering the fragile veneer of my world. As his desperate voice hung in the air, enveloped in a kind of dread that felt tangible, every fiber of my being strained to comprehend what lay before me. "Dad," I whispered again, like a prayer, searching his eyes for answers. "What did you do?" Clara stepped back, sensing the tension thickening around us, her fingers trembling at her sides. Emily remained by my side, a silent pillar, her warmth a contrast to the chill settling within me. I had often dreamed of this moment, the one where I could ask the questions that had festered for years, the longing for resolution that had wrestled with the scars of abandonment. But now, as I faced this man, all the dreams felt laced with bitterness. For a moment, he hesitated, the shadows playing across his face. Then he leaned closer, urgency spilling from his lips. "They are coming for you, Bella. And I can't let that happen again." "Who's coming?" The tremor in my voice surprised even me. The urgency of his tone sent an icy wave through my veins. "Why did you leave? You abandoned us when we needed you the most." He winced as if my words physically struck him. "I had no choice. The decisions I made then were supposed to safeguard your future. You never understood how dangerous it was, how it still is dangerous." "You mean the shadows that have haunted us all this time?" I cast a glance toward Clara, worry etched across her features as she watched the exchange. "What was it you served? Was there ever a choice? There was more at stake than you realize, Bella." His voice trembled, a corner of urgency weaving into his panic. "Your mother, she didn't just decide to walk away from her past. She's been ensnared in something that we can't escape from easily." I felt anger bubble within me, erupting from the depths of years of unanswered questions. "And you think running away would protect us? What about Mom? Why didn't you ever return? You didn't just leave us, you abandoned her." He shook his head. "I thought I could shield you until it calmed down. But it never did, and now, with the storm approaching, they'll find you, too." "Find me?" I echoed, confusion and fear twisting in my gut. "Who are they? What have you dragged us into?" At that moment, Emily's grip tightened on my arm, and she pulled me slightly closer, as if trying to shield me not just from my father, but from the unknown. It was a move filled with a sense of protection, a reminder of our fragile bond in a world that felt increasingly hostile. "Bella," a voice suddenly roared from behind us, booming through the night like thunder. I whipped around to see the shadowy figure of the man from before charging toward us. A cold wave of dread crashed over me, the threat hanging palpably in the air like a warning banner. "Go, now," my father shouted, panic dripping from his words. "You can't stay here." "Who is he?" I shouted, fear electrifying my voice as I felt myself caught between two conflicting tides, my father's desperate urgency and the looming threat of revelation that he doesn't know, but his role is crucial. My father's eyes darted from me to Emily and Clara, the desperation thickening. "Has tied to your mother's father knows too much, and he won't let you leave." With a final glance at my father, one filled with a confusion that threatened to tear me apart, I turned and began to run, pulling Emily along with me. Clara followed, her footsteps echoing in the night like a record of our escalating fear. We dashed through the park, dodging trees illuminated by the sporadic streetlights, our breaths condensing in the chill air. But something pushed me to glance back as my dread swelled. The man had halted, a sinister smile creeping across his features as he locked eyes with me. "You can run, Bella," he called out, the laughter in his voice twisting into something wicked. "But no Thesa storm is coming, and the truth has a way of finding you. Your family's secrets are not as safe as you think." I could feel my heart hammering in my chest as we raced toward the exit, every footstep pounding with an urgency that only the impending darkness could provoke. No longer just a girl facing a growing storm, I felt burrowed in the depths of a mystery that could swallow me whole. With each step, the gravity of my life twisted like a taut string, fraying under the strains of secrets I was yet to confront. Just as we reached the park's border, my father's voice echoed behind us one last time, a fractured whisper filled with sorrow. "You need to find him before it's too late, Bella." I stumbled to a stop, panic stirring as my father's words hovered above me. The shadows from the park loomed ominously in my peripheral vision, a reminder that the night had only just begun to unravel, hiding revelations that could reshape everything I thought I knew. We stood at the edge of the park, hearts racing in unison, breaths ragged, the world around us transformed into an indistinguishable blur of shadows and neon lights. Clara's face reflected my own turmoil, a swirl of fear and urgency rooted in the chaos of the moments we had just witnessed. Emily held tightly onto my arm, grounding me amid the overwhelming uncertainty. Her presence became a tether against the storm that threatened to tear us apart. "Bella," Emily whispered, and I could sense her resolve echoing through the thick air enveloping us. "We need to act. We can't just run away from this." But what were we running toward? My mind was a whirling tempest of confusion, unearthed truths, and lingering questions. The last words spoken could not drown in the din of my thoughts. "You need to find him before it's too late." A dark omen I couldn't shake. My father. The man who had left Ushad left me to sift through the remnants of our lives, the shadows of mystery trailing closely behind him. Why had he returned now? What made him think we were worth saving? "I need to find my mom," I said suddenly, my voice stronger than I felt as adrenaline surged through me. The flickering streetlights illuminated my resolve, glinting against my unyielding spirit. If my father is somehow involved in this, then I need to understand. "There's something he isn't telling me about the storm looming over us." Emily nodded, her fierce spirit flaring silently with agreement. "And if there's anyone who could help, it's that friend of Clara's. We need to get there first." Clara nodded, and the three of us began running again, urgency propelling our feet as the hurried whispers of our hearts guided us to an uncertain fate. As we dashed down streets slick with rain, each footfall seemed to echo against the pain of past grievances made tangible by the heaviness in the air. The coast was ahead, a place painted in our imaginations of summer days long gone, but now it loomed nearer with the darkness of hidden truths. Shadowy figures darted behind us, shrouded by uncertainty. "What if we're too late?" Clara breathed heavily. "What if your mother? What if something happened while we're chasing shadows?" I shook my head, pushing past the rising tide of panic, unwilling to succumb to despair. "We can't think like that. If she's in danger, we'll get to her. Together." Eventually, we emerged from the city and into the outskirts where the sound of crashing waves met our ears, a soothing rhythm in tandem with the chaos within. The shoreline stretched before us, the uncertain path illuminated by the soft glow of a distant light. Was it his house? Fingers trembling, I reached for my phone to check the time. We had only moments, perhaps even seconds, to unveil the truth before it was too late. "It has to be close," I murmured, desperation climbing with the swirling fog that settled over the coast. Soon, we found ourselves standing before a small, unassuming house perched against the cliff's edge, waves crashing fiercely below like guardians of ancient secrets. The windows glowed with the promise of warmth, and I hesitated just outside the door, fear knotting in my stomach as I raised my hand to knock. "Are you ready?" asked Emily gently, squeezing my shoulder in silent support. "Ready or not, here we go," I breathed, pushing through my fears as the door creaked open mysteriously, an invitation into what lay beyond. A shadow stood at the threshold, an elderly man with sharp features and an air of quiet strength, his gaze piercing through to my very soul. "Bella, is it?" he asked, recognition lighting up his weary eyes. "Yes," I whispered, the word falling from my lips like an incantation. "You know my mother?" "Marianne," he said, his voice deep with the burden of years. "Come in, there's much to discuss." As we stepped inside, a cautiously warm space greeted us, faded pictures covering the walls, moments captured in time that spoke more than his words ever could. Memories rushed at me fiercely as I searched for clues wrapped within familiar faces I never properly knew. "Sit," he instructed, motioning to an old wooden table, where shadows danced as the dim light flickered overhead. "What you're facing now is no coincidence. Your father's choices are entwined with your mother's past in a dangerous weaving that will inevitably pull you into its grasp." "What do you mean? Has something happened to her?" I pressed, fear flooding my senses like the waves crashing violently outside, drowning my courage. He paused, taking a moment before he spoke. "Before I share any truths, you need to understand the implications of what your family has been shielding you from. These are pieces of a legacy wrapped in pain, treachery, and countless burdens." I felt the air grow colder, the weight of his words settling on my shoulders like an invisible shroud. "You have to tell me," I insisted, my voice firm with the need for understanding. "I can't run from this anymore." He took a breath, and as he began to unveil the tale of my family's tumultuous history, I could feel the walls I had built, the ones which had kept me safe from pain, begin to tremble ever so importantly. My heart pounded as layers of deception peeled away, revealing a portrait of our past that painted my parents in hues darker than I ever imagined. As I listened, I realized every twist and turn pushed me to a revelation more emotionally shattering than I ever expected. My mother's past relationships were not only intertwined with my father's murky dealings, there were ties reaching further back than I could understand, deep-running traditions rooted in betrayal and need, entangled like the coiling ocean waves outside our door. One crucial truth emerged: my family's sacrifices over the years weren't just about protecting me. They were a means to keep a storm at bay, one that now loomed closer than ever. The implications were terrifying, painting my identity in a shade of betrayal I hadn't been prepared to face. "When the storm breaks, the truth will surface, Bella. You will stand at a pivotal moment. Choose wisely," he warned, his voice a haunting reminder of consequences lived and learned. But even as he spoke, the change was palpable. I felt the weight of realization pushing against the barriers I had built, an acceptance forming within me. For if the storm meant unveiling every hidden wound, then perhaps it was worth standing in that rain to heal. I inhaled deeply, gathering strength for the journey ahead, ready to face whatever awaited me. After sharing the last of what he knew, there was a moment of heavy silence. My heart beat in time with the waves crashing against the cliffs outside, echoes of my unknown future pressing against the now. The shadows of my family flickered like memories nearing extinction, but with every heartbeat, I felt something shifting. Each heartbeat nudged me toward a resolution I hadn't anticipated. The aching need that had clawed at my insides all this time morphed into a fierce determination. I would find my mother. I would confront the storm of our family secrets, even if it ripped me apart in the process. And as we prepared to leave the house, each of us silently stitching our newfound resolve together, we looked at each other, a trio united against uncertainty. Then, just as we made our way toward the door, a loud crash broke through the stillness. My heart seized as I turned instinctively, watching as the door flew open to reveal a scene I hadn't anticipated. Figures emerged from the darkness, strangers cloaked in ominous intent. "Bella!" a voice shouted from the shadows, unmistakably threatening. "You're coming with us." In that moment, time halted me. World gave way beneath me as reality ignited into chaos. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. We had all but opened Pandora's box. The truth of my family was rising from the depths, armed with more danger than I was ever prepared to face. But now it was my truth. My family. My choices. And as fear surged through me, I felt a sudden and overwhelming sense that whatever lay ahead, I was ready to confront it, not just for my family but for myself. "Run!" I cried out, grasping Emily's hand, feeling the heat of her body against mine as we dashed into the chaos that awaited us outside. It was time to bow to the storm if that was what it took, because I could no longer ignore that the truth had come calling. And I was determined to answer. The winds howled, loud and fierce, yet in that moment, against the crashing waves, I felt an unyielding strength rising within me, as if the very heart of the storm was awakening a power I'd always held deep inside. Together, we would face whatever awaited. Secrets could try to consume me, but I would stand tall, ready to reclaim my voice amid the cacophony. And as we stepped into the unknown, I vowed that our truth would no longer drown beneath the tide. I would emerge not just unbroken, but more resolute than ever before, letting the storm rage on. It was time for the secrets to be unveiled, and for family to stand unified, as echoes of generations whispered of hope, resilience, and the fierce power of understanding. With every step, I knew we would weather this storm together. And perhaps in doing so, we would finally discover that the heart of family, no matter how fractured, could find a way to heal. In that moment of clarity, I realized that connection surpasses fear. We were in this together, standing at the edge of the storm and not backing down. And so, the truth began to unfold its wings, ready to soar with the wind as we stepped into the tempest, hearts pounding, souls alight. I was no longer just Bella. I was a force, unyielding in my quest for resolution. As the rain poured down, I lifted my chin, ready to embrace the chaos that lay ahead, ready to face my family's storm together.